Well, though it is 2 years later and season 3 is just days away, let's look back into the first season of *Halt and Catch Fire*. Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for something that I'm sure you guys weren't necessarily expecting me to review, but I'm sure you guys are happy I am reviewing it because I have gotten numerous requests to watch this show. I have heard many good things about it, and finally I'm going to review it, and that is the first season of *Halt and Catch Fire*. Yes, guys, I finally finished the season. If you guys remember, way back in 2014 when the show initially premiered, I did review *Halt and Catch Fire*. I reviewed about the first 6 episodes, and then I just randomly stopped, and I don't really know why. But honestly, it was kind of for the best because, to be honest with you guys, I had no idea what the hell I was talking about back then. I mean, I didn't understand the computer language. I didn't understand what was going on in the show. I didn't understand the deep metaphors. I honestly didn't understand jack shit about that show. I'm not gonna lie. And it's mainly because I just was younger and I didn't have the vocab and just thought process and mind that I do today. But now that it is 2 years later and I'm a bit older and I'm a bit wiser, I feel like, alright, now I think I will take a trip back into this world. I will now binge both seasons, and I know that season 3 is premiering tomorrow, but I figured that I would binge both seasons. Hopefully I'll get season 2 done this weekend. But anyways, let's talk about season 1, because if you guys haven't seen my reviews for season 1, honestly, don't watch them. They're really shitty. I think I literally say in one video that it's better than Mad Men. I don't know what the hell it was talking about most of the time. I used to really overestimate things, and you can watch those videos. They're unlisted if you guys want to watch them, so if you guys want them, I can give you access to them. I really would not encourage you to watch them, because honestly, I had no idea what I was talking about. I sounded like I had like the gayest voice back then. I mean, I could go on and on about those videos. There's so much wrong with them. But anyways, let's talk about season 1, because I was looking forward to re-binging it. I thought, alright, I'm going to find a lot of things I didn't know the first time, some things that maybe I didn't catch, and something I definitely did, catch upon this time that I didn't catch upon the first time is that season 1, while I did like it, it's really not that great, I have to say. I don't really think season 1 is as good as the show can be. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a very good show when it's great, but there's a lot of stuff that happens this season that keeps the show from achieving greatness, and I'm going to get into that. Now, this is not going to be my normally style review where I talk about everything that happens this season, because honestly, a lot of what happens this season is kind of pointless, and it's one of those kind of things. And also, because the season was 2 years ago, I'm going to talk about things I like, things I didn't like, acting, that kind of stuff. But let's get into the plot of the show, because if you don't know the plot of the show, it's pretty simple. Basically, we have this visionary, our main character, Joe McMillan. He is a visionary. He has this big dream to create his own computer at this company called Cardiff Electric, and he goes to this company, like I said, and Gordon Clark works there. He's a man that's observing him and is kind of taken upon his appearance and just his persona, and basically, he becomes involved in this, and he used to be in a company with his wife and everything, and he kind of wants to help out Joe and everything and see what he really wants to do. But then you also have Cameron, who is initially like someone that they take under their wing, and someone who they think of as like a prodigy. She's a young college kid, and she ends up getting kind of entranced by Joe and everything. And basically, they work together to complete a computer. That's the best way I can describe it, because it's kind of hard to explain the plot. That's basically the main plot, though, is that their struggle to create the computer and like things that go on in their personal lives and kind of who they are as characters. But that basically is the main plot. That being said, though, like I said, I think there are a lot of problems with this show. However, I would definitely not say it is the cast's fault at all. Because one of the best things that will definitely command the show upon is its ensemble. The cast here is great. I think everyone really gave a great performance. I think everyone really gave it their all. Even in scenes that didn't really work, I think worked really well. I gotta talk about Lee Pace, because he's obviously one of the biggest standouts in the show. I mean, the second you see him, he's a standout. But I'm not gonna lie, I really did not like his character at first of Joe McMillan. Why? Because he seemed like that cliched anti-hero guy that, oh, he has a big secret and we're gonna shove it in your face that he's mysterious and he kills animals and all this kind of stuff that he's doing, and it just seemed like all they wanted to do was be like, he's a mysterious guy, he's shady as shit, and it just was very annoying, I have to say. It very much got annoying, the fact they were just shoving into my face that he was this terrible person, because one episode it seemed like they're trying to get me to get behind this guy, but then he doesn't want to open up about his past. Where Joe becomes more interesting is when we get introduced to his father, and we start to see how his father's influence has rubbed off on him. And that's something I think the show did very well, because Joe does have a very harrowing past that he doesn't like to open up to most people about, and he doesn't even like to show himself to most people. He likes to hide who he is, and I think honestly that was a very interesting character trait. But the one thing I will commend Lee Pace upon is that he is great as this character, whether his scene is good or bad. You know, he's someone that gives a great performance throughout the entire season. I think he did a great job. I think he was phoning it in a couple times, but that's because of the writing, because the writing's my main problem here, but I think Lee Pace overall, he did a really great job. I really did love his character, and he definitely seems like just a very commanding type of actor, and I think he definitely was very good in that role. He definitely was very well casted, and definitely one of the best parts of the show, I have to say. I think he was really great. But just as good, I think, is Scoot McNairy as Gordon, who at first was my favorite character. I really did love him overall. He really is fantastic, and one of the things I love about his character is that he's kind of the guy that's not really in charge at all. In fact, he's someone that's kind of just observing from the wings and just happens to get himself involved with this. And I think he did a very good job with that. I really loved his character because he's someone that doesn't just want this computer to be any computer. He wants it to be different, because a lot of the different computer, type companies like Apple and IBM are competing with each other, and they're trying to replicate other people's success, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to make something original and different, and I really loved his character here. I thought he did a very good job, and he also has some really good stuff going on with his marriage. We'll get more into that when we get to Kerry Bische, but I think he did a really good job, and he also has some great scenes where he clashes with Joe, and I will admit, I think there are a bit too many of these scenes, but I think overall he did a very good job. I really did like his character, and he really did sell it. The one character that really did take me a long time, I mean a long time for me to really actually appreciate, I think was Mackenzie Davis as Cameron. Not that I didn't like her character, but throughout the majority of this season, she's mainly a plot device. She's not exactly a character. She's more of a plot device that's just there to kind of depict how women were treated in the workplace and that sort of job, and I think they do a good job with it. It's just because of that, she has a lot of random scenes where they're clearly trying to develop her character, but there's not a lot of substance to it. Like, maybe one episode they'll show, oh, she's very competent at what she's doing, and she is very smart, and yeah, you definitely see that, but then you'll cut to a scene of her randomly shoplifting or partying, and it just doesn't really add much to the episode, I have to say. I mean, I think she did a good job in the scene she has, especially the scene she has with Joe. Those are among the best scenes in the show. Her scenes with Joe, I think, are very well done because he's one of the only people that really takes a liking to Cameron. At first, it's simply just a little bit of manipulation, but he kind of ends up falling in love with her, and I really did like the relationship those two developed. I thought it was very well done, and I think overall you really do believe the chemistry that those two have, and especially once she realizes, what Joe is hiding, I think that's when things became a lot more interesting with her character. And as this season went on, I did grow to like her character more and more and more. I definitely will say that. I liked her the most, definitely in episode 9. We'll get into that when we get to spoilers, but I really did love her performance overall. I think she did a very good job, and she took what could have been a very cliched character and really made her own, and I think she did a very good job with that. I really loved what she did here. It took a while for me, like I said, to really like her character, because she's kind of hard to like at points, but I did like what she did for the most part. I thought she was very good, and especially after episode 5, I'd say, is when I really started to like her. Now, one thing I definitely will compliment the show on is the chemistry between these three characters, and I think that's something that just got done very, very well. You really are rooting for these characters. Even if you don't really agree with what they're doing, you're rooting for them the whole way. You want this to work out for them. You're really hoping that they are going to get this computer done, and even when things seem like they're at the end of their rope and things are really failing for them, you are rooting for them, and I think they did a very good job with that. I really love what they do with the characters and the bonding that they have, and I will admit it did take me a while to actually want them to work together, because the show kind of makes us think that maybe it's not the best thing. But once they start working on that machine, and once they actually are working together and things are becoming successful, that's when I really started working with them. I think those core three just work very well together. They work very well as a trio, and I really like seeing their success in this show. Now, another key character here is Kerry Bische as, I think that's Kerry Bische, Kerry Bische, I don't know, but Kerry Bische as Gordon's wife, Donna. I love her character. Now, the thing I love about her character the most is that she probably is the only well-rounded character in this show. I've heard a lot of people say that. It's mainly because all these characters, they all have really troubled pasts or things that are bothering them, and Donna's kind of the one that's normal, per se. She's normal, she's kind of like the matriarch of the family, and she's the one that really gets stuff done. Anything that Gordon wants done, she'll do. Anything that Gordon, that she wants Gordon to do, he'll do for her, and she's kind of like the Lady Macbeth in some ways. Now, I wouldn't really compare her to Joanna in Mr. Robot, because she's not at all that conniving and that evil, but she definitely resembles that in the sense that anything she wants, Gordon will do for her, and that's something you definitely do see, and I really did like that with her character, and I think overall she gave a very good performance. My problem is she's extremely underused this season. I think the stuff they give to her this season really did not need to be in her plots. I like what they do with her and Scoot McNairy. I think they have very good chemistry, and you're really rooting for their marriage till the end, because you can see they have very good chemistry, and you can really see why these two ended up together, because they used to be in a company together, and we do hear about it. But the stuff they give Donna in this season, I don't really think services her character that well. In fact, her plot this season that she eventually has is probably the worst thing this season did, and it ends up getting much better after that, but it's probably the worst thing I think this season did, and ended up becoming very unnecessary. I really was not a fan of that, and other than that, though, like I said, I think she overall did a very good job. I just don't really think we got to see her as good as I think we're going to see her in Season 2. She plays a much more substantial role there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does in Season 2 once we get there. So the cast overall, I think, is very good. I think that definitely works very well. And the directing here, I think, is good as well. I think definitely the directing, you can tell the tone is very dark, but it's also very hopeful throughout. You really do want this to go well for them, and you definitely have this hopeful tone that things are going to get better, and that the things that the characters are going through, their personal struggles, they are going to get, it is going to get better for them, and that's something that works very well in the show. I really did love the directing, and I think that's something that worked very well here. My biggest problem with the show by far is the writing. Now, let me just say, I don't think the writing in the show is that bad. I don't think it's that bad. It's far from the worst writing I've seen. I mean, the writing here is fine, but it's clearly a show that's still trying to find its footing, and you definitely do see that this entire season. This is a show that I don't really think knows what it wants to be at some points, especially for its first 4 episodes, which, let me just say, are very hard to get through, because there's so much good in those first 4 episodes. They just don't really realize their potential, I think, till about the 5th episode. That's really when I started to get hooked on this show. And I'll tell you the biggest problem. I think one of the biggest problems the show has is that it tries to do these big things with these characters who we've only known for a couple of episodes and who we don't really care about as much as the show wants us to. And that's something that really shows when a show is too confident. And there is such a thing as being too confident. And I think this is a show that was just a bit too confident. I remember when this premiered, AMC was going crazy, premiering, just showing so many promos during The Walking Dead, showing promos on so many channels. Everybody was talking about this show. And then nobody talked about it. And why? Because it really was a bit of a letdown for the first 4 episodes, because while you have these characters, they do these big things with them, and I think it was just kind of too early to do some of the stuff they do, especially in episode 2. Episode 2, things get way too crazy, and I think definitely things got a bit too off the rails in the first half of the season. The second half, it definitely does pick up, but I think the first half, there definitely is a struggle with tone, and I'm not gonna lie, there are some scenes here that are very unintentionally funny, especially in the 4th episode, and especially in the 7th episode, which I'll talk about that 7th episode, but the 4th episode especially, there are about 2 scenes where I honestly just cracked up because they were so badly done, and I don't really know what could have made them better, but there are a lot of scenes here that just feel like they're here just to add something to the character, or just add something shocking, because this is a show that I think is very focused on shock value. You definitely do see that for the first 4 episodes. There's a lot of stuff, like Joe's introduction, for example, is him, I believe, running over, and if I remember correctly, it was an aardvark. He runs over an aardvark or something like that. Yeah, I think he runs over an aardvark, and It was ridiculous. It really was. The way that whole scene was done. It just kind of showed that Joe's just kind of maniacal, and it didn't really get me to like his character. And a lot of stuff like that, I don't really think the show did very well. This is a show that likes to do a lot of deep symbolism, and I don't really know if it was a show to do it. Some of it works very well. Like, there's a great bit in episode 5 where Joe is very angry at his father. He's angry what his father did to Cameron and manipulating her, and there is this contest where you need to smash a car with a hammer, and whoever, smashes it gets a good amount of money or something, and he ends up smashing it very hard to basically take out the energy on his father. That is good symbolism. An example of bad symbolism is, for example, what they do with the bird this season, which is absolutely ridiculous. You have this dead bird that Donna wants gone, and basically it's supposed to represent the fallen marriage of Gordon and Donna, but it basically makes you think those two are going to get a divorce, and it really does not work because it's only episode 3. The tension should not be that heightened. I feel like this show really didn't want to take its time. I think that's the main thing, is that it really isn't a show that took its time very much at all. It's a show that was moving, I think, way too fast, that did eventually slow down, but I think for those first 4 episodes, it's kind of, honestly, it's kind of agonizing, honestly, and it's kind of hard to get through some of them. Like, some of it is kind of giving you a headache because they're moving through things so quickly that you really don't get to see certain plot lines end up in the way you want to, and it's kind of hard to tell what's going on at points because, like I said, they move through things so quickly. So I think that really is the main fault with the writing, is that they really had a lot of problems there. But then we get to the second half of the season, which is really when things I thought start to get really good. Like, episode 5 was probably the first episode where I started to have less complaints, and then episode 6 was even better. There was still a random thing in episode 6 that I didn't like involving Gordon and Cameron that I thought was stupid. But I did like what they did in episode 6 overall, because that's the episode where we finally start to see Joe's true colors. We finally start to see he does have a heart, and he does care for people, and he is a genuinely nice guy, but he's just not a happy guy, and that's really the problem with him, is that he himself doesn't feel true happiness, and that's something I think they did very well in this season. I definitely thought they addressed it very well after that. Unfortunately, episode 7 is a complete downfall of what this show shouldn't be. If I had to give you a bad episode, episode 7 is absolutely the worst episode this show has ever done, and it's mainly because, now I haven't seen season 2, I'm assuming it's gonna be better, but episode 7, I don't know what they were thinking, honestly, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why it was bad. Why? Because it was so unintentionally funny. I'm not gonna lie. That entire episode, I was in stitches. I really was, and it sucks because you have a good concept here. You have an old flame from Joe's past who, did I mention that Joe is bisexual? Yes, he is, and he's actually someone that uses his sexuality to get things from people, which I thought was interesting. I've seen shows do that before, like The Americans, but I think Halt and Catch Fire, that was, again, something that they didn't really utilize as well as they could have. You have this character here who is supposed to be from Joe's past, and who Joe obviously has personal beef with, but they just didn't really take it, I think, as seriously as they should have. I think a lot of this, honestly, that episode feels like self-parody. It really does, and it's not smart parody. It's not what Mr. Robot does. That's an example of good parody, where they know that they're being a bit silly, but there's definitely substance there. This is just self-parody. It was ridiculous. It was stupid. I don't know what they were thinking. And then you get to Donna, who by far had the most ridiculous stuff in that episode, which, spoiler warning if you guys care, Donna has this ridiculous arc where she's at her workplace and she starts to get attracted to this guy, Hunt, and they start to get close and everything. She makes a pass at him. We quickly realize that he doesn't like her, but she still goes for it. It looks like she's about to have sex with him, but he luckily does reject her before anything else can happen there, and it was just stupid. I don't know why they had to go in this direction, because at first they made me think that someone's going to happen between Gordon and Cameron because of the way that Donna was talking about Cameron, but then you have Donna just go behind Gordon's back and fucking cheat on this guy, and that is a complete hypocritical statement from what Donna was trying to do. It just seems so out of character. I don't know why they had her do this, because it didn't really go with what they had set up to her character previously, and that's something the show doesn't really understand. I don't think the show fully understands its characters as well as it thinks it does. And I think it definitely, by episode 8, that's when it starts to get really good. But episode 7 is when things get really dumb. I really do not like that. But then the last 3 episodes of the show, I think were generally really great. I really did love the last 3 episodes. Not so much the finale. We'll get into the finale in a little bit. I didn't love the finale, but I liked most of the finale. But I really, the best episode by far of this season is episode 8. I can't remember what it was called, but episode 8, I think that by far was the best episode the show has given us, because it was one where they were able to take it to 214s. That's what it was called. 214s. That's the best episode of the season, in my opinion. And it's mainly because it's just a great balance of, I think, everything the show has been leading up to. We have some great emotional scenes. We have some really heightened tension, but it never feels too over the top. It never feels like they're doing too much. It always feels like the show is just moving, and it seems like there's actually stuff getting done. I could actually tell what was going on in most of the episode, and that's something I think they did very well. I really did love the way that was all done. And the thing that really sold that episode for me was this scene with Gordon and Cameron where they're both talking about Joe's past, and it's really when they start to understand each other more, and it really was great. And I wish we had more scenes like that this season, and thankfully we get more of that in episode 9, which I really did love. But episode 8 really is the episode, I think, that really got me to really like the show. Because I'm not going to lie, it took me a very long time to actually get hooked. I honestly was ready to drop out after, like, episode 3, but I didn't. And then episode 7, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this anymore. But episode 8 luckily hooked me right back in. I loved everything about episode 8. I think they did that very well. And then from there, the last 3 episodes I thought were generally pretty great. And that's something that stayed consistent throughout the rest of the season. Something else I really did like about the show is what they do with computers, because, of course, one of the biggest part of the show is them constructing this computer and things like that. And there's a great line in the first episode that I've always loved that Joe says, where he says, computers are not the thing, it's the thing that gets us to the thing. And it shows that he doesn't just want to build this computer, he wants to start a whole conglomerate. Because like I said, IBM and Apple, these are 2 companies that are kind of ripping off each other. And IBM definitely wants to see card drift fail. We hear about this, threatening IBM throughout the entire season. I think that's something they did very well, and showing how they wanted this computer to be original and not something that's just a random computer. They wanted it to actually be something special, and that's something I really did appreciate. I like that. I thought that the computer stuff was very interesting, and it really made me understand, the computer business a little more. Nothing that I'd ever really go into, but I think that's something the show did pretty well, is get us to understand how the way this business works, how tough of a field it can be, how competitive it can be. That stuff I think the show did very well. The problem is I was never fully hooked, because like I said, the show would do that, but then it would do something ridiculous that has really no bearing on the plot and is just there to add some sort of twist or shock value, I think, to just hook someone in and not make them bored, which I can understand. But like I said, I don't really think the show knew its audience yet, because it didn't really have much of one then anyway. But then we get to... So yeah, like I said, I think that was pretty good. The cinematography here I thought was pretty great as well. You definitely feel like you're in the 80s. That's something the show does very, very well. It really does utilize its 80s setting. There are a ton of 80s references. There are a ton of 80s things going on. I mean, the first episode involves Gordon trying to fix his daughter's speak and spell. I mean, it really does show you where you are. And it is kind of refreshing to watch a show like this where that's not like Stranger Things. So Stranger Things is great, but that's also a sci-fi show. This is a period piece, and it does it very well. I like what they did here. I really did feel like I was in the 80s, and it never felt like I wasn't in the 80s. That's something the show does very well, really just put you in that time period, and I definitely will give the show that. I think that they did that very well. Score here is great. Really have nothing against the score. There's some fantastic montages. The editing, I think, definitely was a bit choppy in many episodes, but it really did get better, like I said, as the season went on, and I really did love that, and I think that also worked very well in the show. Some things were choppy, some scenes I think could have been taken out entirely, and some scenes, I'm not gonna lie, feel extremely random. This is a season where there are scenes here, I have no idea where they were going. They don't talk about them anymore. There are scenes where characters will have a dramatic confrontation, and then it kind of just ends, and it doesn't seem like this season does have a clear focus at points, with certain things. The season obviously does have a clear focus in terms of getting the computer done, but certain things just seem like they don't really have a clear focus of where they were going. It just seemed like the writers had an idea, and they didn't exactly stick to it. And that is obviously the writers' fault. I'm not going to fault them necessarily, because I think they had an idea, but I just don't really know if they knew where they wanted to take, because like I said, I don't really think they knew their audiences, so I can't really fault them with that. Also, it was the first season, so I think they were just trying to do what they thought they could do, but that really didn't work for me either, and I think that also kind of hurt the show a bit, but for the most part, the editing's pretty good. I don't have many complaints in terms of editing. But now we will talk about the spoilers, because I really do want to talk about the moment that the show really did get great for me. So if you guys have not seen *Halt and Catch Fire* Season 1, which I'm sure you have, if you're watching this, I'm late to the party. I know I'm late to the party. But despite that, it's on Netflix. That's how I binged it. Very weird to watch on Netflix because there's no previously on *Halt and Catch Fire*. It's very strange because it just starts so abruptly. Very weird the way that was. But anyways, watch *Halt and Catch Fire* on Netflix, then come back and watch my review. But anyway, let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is what ended up happening with Bosworth, because like I said, I think Bosworth was a character who, he had potential, but I just don't really know if they knew where to go with him, and I think what they ended up doing with him was pretty great. We see him and Cameron, they're working on something throughout the season, and we eventually realize that what they were doing was trying to gang the company more money, and by doing that, they ended up robbing banks and doing illegal stuff and all this kind of shady shit, and lo and behold, basically, make a long story short, what ends up happening is that Bosworth decides to take the blame for Cameron so that way Cameron can succeed and Cameron can go on, because he feels that Cameron is, very talented and should continue to do what she loves, and basically this gives them the opportunity to decide to appear at almost like a Comic-Con. I can't really remember what it was called. What was it called? I'm trying to look. What was it called again? It's like a Comic-Con sort of, but it's obviously not Comic-Con. Oh, Comdex. They basically get to appear at Comdex to show off their computer and make sure that's finally going to be made, and that obviously gives them the opportunity to do that, and they go to Comdex, and that's when things I thought got really interesting, because at Comdex, Donna's also there. You have everything really set up very well, and I think that is a very good penultimate episode. There's a lot of great stuff throughout that episode, because that's the episode where Gordon realized what Donna was doing with Hunt, and you're thinking this might be the end of their marriage. But for me, I think the real ticker of that episode was what was going on between Joe and Cameron. That by far was the best stuff going on here, because Cameron is someone that had all these ideas for the computer to make it different, make it visionary, make it something that no one will ever see before, and Joe scrapped all of her ideas, we find out, and this obviously very much pisses her off. Not only that, but she leaves the company because she feels like she's just not really wanted there, because obviously he's not appreciating what she's doing, he doesn't seem to care much, and she ends up leaving, and it's understandable why she ends up leaving, and he ends up realizing that the computer can speak and things like that, so they did in fact put some features into it, and the computer is successful. But then we get to the finale, and the finale I do have a couple problems with. My biggest problem with the finale is it seems like we kind of get away from car drift, I think, a bit too fast, and I think the ending for the finale is good, but basically with the what happens in the finale is we go to the finale, and Gordon and Donna, they actually very quickly repair their marriage after what happened with Hunt, because they kind of realize that they need to move on, and they need to still be a married couple, and that's something I do like about Gordon and Donna, is that nothing did actually happen between Donna and Hunt, so there's really nothing that Gordon can be too upset about. I mean, yeah, she's the one that made the pass, but nothing actually happened beyond kissing. They didn't have sex, so obviously he can't be too mad about, which I did like seeing. I thought that stuff was really good. I really did enjoy that overall. But what ends up happening is Donna, basically, they recover and everything. Donna's then fired from her job, though, we see, because they just don't really want her there, so she ends up losing her job, and she then gets a position from Cameron to work at this place called Mutiny, which is where Cameron's going to be working, which is a lot more relaxed than whatever was at Cardriff, and it's a really nice change of pace, because it's exactly where Cameron needs to be. This is a place where there are no bosses and no workers. They're simply just all people working together, trying to figure out how to construct the internet, and that's basically what she's trying to do. She's trying to discover the internet and make the internet and figure out how it works, and that's something I really did love seeing, and I think it's going to be a very interesting direction to see where Donna goes. Gordon, meanwhile, he starts to really see Joe's true colors because he starts to realize that Joe really wasn't happy with what he was doing, and that's something that really motivated Gordon. Gordon looked up to Joe. He saw Joe as everything he wanted to be, and now realizing that Joe really wasn't happy and that Joe wasn't that man he thought he was, he ends up really lost. He doesn't really know what he wants to do. Is he going to go to Cameron and Donna's company? Is he going to go out on his own? We don't really know, but I do love the way things ended up with Joe, because Joe basically ends up literally riding off into the sunset basically to rediscover himself, because now that he's away from Cardriff and he knew he had this great idea and it did go well for him, it's not that it didn't go well. Cardriff definitely was successful, but he's now moving on to better things. He's realizing that he needs to move on. He's going into the sunset to rediscover himself, and that's where we end up at Season 1. And keep in mind, guys, they didn't know they were getting a Season 2, so I think it is a pretty satisfying ending if it would have been the series finale, but obviously it's not. But that's basically how we end the season. I think overall was a good ending. I didn't hate the finale by any means. I just feel that things ended way too quickly. Like, Cardriff in general, there wasn't really a genuine reason besides everyone just left. And the reason everyone left was, I don't know, maybe Cameron offered them something better. But it just kind of didn't really work. I mean, Gordon could have gotten more workers. They could have recruited more people. I know obviously it was kind of useless because the one person that helped them the most wasn't there. But it just kind of felt weird that Cardriff kind of just ended and now they're going to Mutiny. But I do like that the show kind of reset itself for the next season, because that's really what I think the show needs. It does need a bit of a reset. It needs to get a bit more interesting. And if it dives deeper into its characters, it's going to get very, very good. And I feel like that's exactly where Season 2 is headed. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I think overall was a very good way to cap off the rest of the season. So overall, Halt and Catch Fire Season 1 is definitely not perfect, but as it went on, it definitely did get a lot better. I liked a lot of it. A lot of it, like I said, I didn't like, but most of it I really did like. I think the cast works very well. I think the writing works very well. And I think the direction that they went in Season 2, for Season 2, is a very good direction for the show, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. But anyways, guys, at the end of the day, when I really think about it, even though I didn't love this season, I was never really that hooked, I'm still going to give Halt and Catch Fire Season 1 a 3.5 out of 5 or a B. Like I said, not at all a bad season. I think this was overall a good season. I think they did some very good things with this season. I think they had all the right ingredients in there to make this some really compelling television, but I do think it got a bit ahead of itself. I think they were still trying to find their footing, but it definitely seems like going to Season 2, they know a lot more what they want to be. They're a lot more confident, and I think the story we're going to be following is going to be a lot easier and a lot more interesting to follow, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they end up pulling that off once we get to Season 2, and I'm definitely looking forward to starting Season 2 tonight, because I definitely will. But anyways, guys, that's it for my review of Season 1 of Halt and Catch Fire. Again, sorry I was late to the party. I know, like I said, there were certain things that I didn't really understand. I just wanted to review the season because I figured, like, obviously I'm binging the show. I want to give you my thoughts. I didn't just want to do Season 1, Season 2, because that'd be like a 15-minute review, and I really didn't want to do that. But let me know what you guys saw this season. Do you agree with me that it wasn't the best? I'm definitely looking forward to Season 2. I think Season 2 is going to be a lot better. I've heard Season 2 is a lot better. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the season. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Girl Meets World. I know a lot of you wanted me to watch it. I am going to watch it, guys. I promise you I will finally watch Girl Meets World, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.